There we go, I think.
Well, hello.
There it is.
Hi, my name is Dr. Michelle Moras.
And I'm Brian Swanson.
We are Denim and Pearls.
Business casual.
With pearls of wisdom.
From the poach.
We switch sides.
We did something wrong there. I don't know what we did. But welcome to our podcast today. And don't forget to like and share and tell all your friends about us and all those other kind of fun things. You know the routine. Be nice.
Well, today's fun.
Today is kind of a fun one.
Yeah, we were talking about books earlier. We're like, what the heck? Let's just talk about books.
Let's talk about books. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about.
What was your first book? What was that first
Well,
novel?
wait a minute. You gotta do this title. Paperback writer. Okay, so I shouldn't have done it.
Okay, that's kind of difficult to. I want to be a paperback writer. Paperback writer.
See, you did better than I did.
Paperback.
Of course, when it comes to
writer.
vocalizing. I can't vocalize except for to talk.
Okay, well.
So we were talking about books.
And we were talking about what was your very first novel you've ever written that you ever written?
The first novel I've ever written.
The first novel you ever read.
Out of the 45 I have.
And I was telling him, I was like, I really don't remember because I read so much. I was a voracious reader as a kid. I mean, my thing was I would wake up in the morning, do my chores, and then walk to the library, which was a couple miles away. And then I would get my books, a stack of them, because I would read so fast. And I remembered I read all of the Little House on the Prairie. Then I started.
Were you a library geek?
Yeah.
So if I ever wanted to find you, I'd find you in the library?
Yeah, usually sitting in the corner with all of the Nancy Drew Hardy Boy books and things like that.
Well, I did that too, but I didn't sit in the library.
Oh, I always sat in the library or while I was collecting books. And then I would get my stack of books and I would go out to the parade field. I lived at Clark Air Base, Philippines. And there was this huge tree and I would always sit under this tree and I would read them all 5 of them, and then I bring them back to the library.
Not this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I read, don't get me wrong. I mean, because it was one, I think it was the reason why is because we were taught to read. It was one of those things that you had to read this and you had to read that. And then it was like, it will expand your imagination. It will expand your vocabulary and expound upon this. See, I even learned big words back in the day.
Big word.
One of them anyways. But I did read, but I was never a bookworm.
Oh man, I was a crazy. Well, I still am. I'm writing them now.
Well, but that's different.
But I think the first big novel I remember reading that wasn't a novelette was Little House on the Prairie. But then the second one, I got really into sci-fi.
Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Yes, I got really into sci-fi. So I think my next one was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Never read that one.
And then Dune. And
that's getting pretty serious.
That shifted everything because once I got into books like Dune, I went crazy with all the sci-fi books. I mean, I can't even think of the titles.
Remember the ones? Did you have? Well, your schooling was a little different than mine. Did you have all those ones that you had to read?
Of course.
The Fahrenheit 451, and what was the other one?
Oh, the one about all the crazy kids on the island all by themselves.
Yeah, and the
Piggy. Oh my gosh,
Kill a Mockingbird.
No, the Piggy one. The Wild Boys one. Oh shoot,
I don't remember that one.
Oh, I might have to look it up while you're thinking. The kids were wild, and they were on an island by themselves, and I remember being horrified by this whole story. Oh my God, it's super famous.
All I can think of is Gulliver's Travels at the moment.
No.
Which we found out while we were in Croatia that's based on Marco Polo.
Yes, we did.
Which is a real person, by the way.
Yeah. But when I got into Dune and then I got all the sci-fi, I read every Star Trek book. And then I discovered Stephen King.
I kind of went straight to Stephen King. I read some here and there, but I don't remember anything specifically. But I think
what was one of your first books that you remember?
I think one of my first ones was Firestarter.
Okay.
Because I loved King, and the reason why today I might question some of the decisions, but I loved him at the time because everything he wrote couldn't be disproven. It was like real life. So it was like Firestarter. Is there such thing as telekinesis? Or pyrokinesis or telekinesis
that
in
we
another
can
case?
prove?
Yeah, but you can't prove it or deny it at this point, especially back then.
My
I don't
thing
know
is,
what it is
I
now.
liked imagination. I loved going into whole different worlds and seeing different things, and I would get so transfixed into books. I love to read.
No, I didn't have time to read. I was always too busy doing something.
I always found time to read.
It's like I can't even. It's like sitting down and smoking a cigar. It's supposed to be the joyous in life, and a big leather chair and a glass of whiskey.
But you're talking to people when you're doing that,
Well,
supposedly.
yeah, supposedly, but on the other
Because
side
I
of it,
love cigar bars.
I cannot sit out on the porch. My dad used to have a house on the lake, and go out on the porch and sit there and just sitting for 5 minutes, so I'm ready to go. It's like I gotta have something to do. And books were the same way. I mean, and when I was a kid, reading a lot of those books in that time frame was mainly because it kept me away from mom.
Oh, and I
could hide in my room and yes, I'm reading a book. It's for school.
well, and a lot of the times, if I wasn't just hanging out at the library or under a tree, if I was in sports, I would always go from school, go home, drop all my stuff off, and then walk to my wherever I was gonna, whatever sport I was doing, and then I was always early, so I would sit and read, waiting for everyone else to show up.
Have you ever not finished a book
Yes.
because you think the ending's going to be stupid or what?
There's one book in particular that I have.
Oh,
in my
she's
head.
actually got one in mind.
Oh yeah, it's the one I've tried to pick it up again. My mother-in-law suggested I read a particular book. I won't say it because the author might get mad at me.
You know the author?
No.
Do you think the author is going to run across our podcast?
Well, someone might say, "Oh my gosh, all sales on this book went down because Michelle said she hated it."
I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
Especially back in that far back.
I can't remember. No, it's not that far. It's actually in the past 20 years.
Oh.
It was called the Poisonwood Bible. About this thick. I got a third of the way in, and I hated the main character so much. I did not care what happened to that character, and I stopped reading. And
your imagination continued on from there.
Oh no, my mother-in-law's like, read it, it's really good. I'm like, I can't get myself to read it. I could not stand the main character. So look up Poisonwood Bible and let me know if you could get through it, because tell me what happens.
Is it like is it a Gone with the Wind 1,000 pages kind of thing, or is it just a simple novel?
Oh no, it's an intense, very detailed book, and it was just the character resonated so ill with me that I was hoping that the villagers would kill him. I mean, so wow. Like, I could not stand this character. So
sounds like we need to get a new movie out.
Yeah, maybe I should try picking it up again. But yeah, I'm a voracious reader, but you have to keep me interested in that book. Like Christopher Moore, he's like my favorite now. I read him constantly. Oh, that was another book I started reading. I read well, but they're not novels. Everything by Richard Bach.
Oh, Richard Bach?
Yeah, I'll read anything by
Richard Bach or Bachman?
Bach. Richard Bach.
Okay, so not the Stephen King protege.
No, Richard Bach is the one who wrote Illusions and Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And the other one I will read anything he writes is William Paul Young, who wrote The Shack. And
wait a minute, Bachman was the name of that was Stephen King's alter ego.
Yes.
It was Richard Bachman. But there was another book that he wrote it in conjunction with somebody. It was called Ghost. I can't remember who that was, and I thought it was Bach.
All I know is I love to read. And if you do not like to read, there's audiobooks now. Just listen to them. And the reason why I really thought this was a great topic about books and reading and how you pull in information is if you ever see me speak, or if you ever see me on my shows or whatever I'm doing, I tell a lot of stories. I tell a lot of stories because I think all those stories I read as a child, that description, that ability to paint a picture in someone else's mind came from me reading other people's descriptions that went into my mind.
Right.
So that whole creative side,
which makes sense. I mean, because that's what they tell you to do anyway. That's
Mm-hmm.
what we're taught as kids, and I think we grow up with that. Is there a book you've never picked up that you just cannot stand the title of it or the concept?
Besides the Poisonwood Bible?
Well, that was one you said you started.
I started and put it down.
Because I have one that I never could pick up, and I finally did after many, many years, and I don't think I ever finished it.
What is it?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
I just did a series on that.
I know, it's a wonderful series. However, I hated the title. I could not pick that book up for years because I thought it was very, egotistical or whatever.
Oh no.
How to Win Friends. Why do I need to win friends?
It's because it's all about.
I mean, I know what it's
Now
about
you know.
now.
Okay, well, what was your very first?
I had a hard time picking that
What
book
was your
up.
first business book that you ever read?
First business book? Oh, actually, I do remember. It was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay.
That was my very first business book I've ever read. Now,
my first business book was given to me by Joan Dixon. She was my best friend's mom, and then she ended up being my boss, and she was mentoring me basically, and she was giving me books all the time and always telling me to read them, and then she would quiz me on the books, and it was John Maxwell books.
Oh, I've read most of his.
And so
I cannot say, he's kind of like King. You can't say you read all of his books.
You can't, because he's got hundreds and hundreds. But I think the very first book I got from her was a John Maxwell book, 21 Laws of Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And she would read, I would read, and she would pull me into her office, every afternoon and say, "So what did you learn today?" And I would tell her about what I learned in that book. And she was always feeding me John Maxwell books. So when I got my brain injury and I forgot who I was and all that jazz,
I knew that was coming.
In my bookcase were every John Maxwell book she gave me.
I've read most of all of John's. He has a tendency to be repetitive between books, but I've read most of his books.
You do know all of his teachings are pulled out of a Bible, right? Out of the Bible.
Oh, of course.
So that's why it's going to be
not necessarily pulled out of, but
his lessons are.
His lessons
and so what he's done is, the reason why they're repetitive is because there's one Bible. The other thing is people pick up different books. Like he said, he would not pick up How to Win Friends. Well, with John Maxwell, that's Carnegie. But But if John Maxwell writes a book and it says, how to do blah blah blah, you do, I don't want to read that, but you pick up the other book. The other book has the same lesson in it. You're still getting it, right, just with a different title. Yeah, I love
my favorite one though.
What?
And you've heard me say this before.
How to Eat a Frog? Oh,
no, I never. Oh, I could never get into that one.
What color is your parachute?
No.
What?
Who moved my cheese?
Oh yeah.
You know why? Because
cheese?
No matter when you read it, you could read it today and turn around next week and read it again, and it'll give you a whole different lesson. And it's a short read. I can read it in less than a day.
One of my favorite books.
But that's not a novel.
Yeah, one of my favorite books I read, and it's going to be silly. I know you're going to think it's silly. Ready? Eats, Shoots, and Leaves.
Why do I remember that?
It's a punctuation grammar book.
Oh.
So the panda.
I got a whole picture in my head of, and this has nothing to do with it, but when you said that, I got a picture in my head of Jay Silverstein.
Yeah, it's kind of.
And
like
I love Jay Silverstein.
But it's kind of like that, because Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. It's like the panda. It's like a title of a newspaper article. It says the panda eats, shoots, and leaves, and there's no punctuation. So it looks like the panda eats, then shoots somebody, then leaves. But no, he eats, shoots, and leaves. That was hilarious. But the whole book is like that. It's all grammar and punctuation, and I get the biggest giggle from that book. Yes, I'm a nerd.
Yeah, but you like the mouse and a cookie too. So
yeah, give a mouse a cookie.
Yeah, that's actually a book, right?
Yeah,
or is it just a story?
It's a children's book.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. And so the other thing about reading for me is, when I was about 10, 11, I started reading to my little brother and sister, because my brother and sister, the twins, are 10 years younger than me. And I started reading my books to them. They were infants, but I had to babysit them. So I would sit there and I would read my book out loud. And Monique and Jacques were just so expressive little kids. So I would read it with really exciting. So then the question mark came. I mean, I would read my textbooks to them. And I think they taught me inflection, and because I would watch their reaction by my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I oh my goodness,
I did make a mistake and give a book to somebody I should have never given a book to.
What?
I had an old friend of mine, and she had a baby, and I gave her Grimm's Fairy Tales.
Oh.
It wasn't well, the bad part was is once I gave it to her, then I actually saw what it was, and I went,
Yeah, that's
well, it's probably not appropriate. So this woman, she's a woman now because she's
terrifying.
probably in her 30s now. This girl, she's probably in her 30s. I don't know if she still has it, if she put it on her shelf, but it was kind of her happy birth book.
Here's a death
That's
book.
pretty disturbing.
Yeah, here's a book of death. Grimm's fairy tales are quite grim. By the
I
way.
kind of found that out.
But no, I reading is my thing, and my husband is a huge reader. And if you haven't heard him talk about it before, our cabin is full of books. It's our place to read and do puzzles, and we like to read. But yeah, Christopher Moore. If you haven't seen Christopher Moore, look for a Christopher Moore book. He's whimsical, he's funny, and every book refers to another book. It's phenomenal. I wish I could.
See, I don't know how you guys do that. Yeah, I'm back on the cabin statement.
Yes.
I don't know how you guys do that. That would I don't know if I could.
What?
Just go hang out at the cabin, no connection. I know your cell phone don't work for a darn, but do a puzzle, read a book, just kind of hang out and do. I know there's a lot of people out there that will love it.
Yeah, I love
Okay.
it.
But again, it's back to that thing. I can't sit still that long. I would have to be outside, maybe cutting wood.
Michael does that. He's out there cutting down trees and making firewood, but it's in between all of our other things of reading. We'd sit there, we'll wake up, we'll read, have our coffee, have our breakfast, and then we read for a little bit. Then, yeah.
I mean, if they ever wanted to put me in jail, all they would have to do is stick
you
me
in a cabin.
They just put me in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. That would be my biggest punishment.
And that is my biggest blessing.
I mean, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I'm sure I would figure it out. I'm resourceful enough that I would do something. But
trust me,
on the other side of it, if I'm all by my lonesome and there's nobody around to talk to,
I'm telling you, a cabin has a lot of work to do. There's always something to do.
After 10 years, they'd bring me back and I'd be Dr. Doolittle because I'd be talking to all the animals and the snakes and the critters because I wouldn't have anything else to
do. Brian's Achilles heel alone.
Alone is not a good thing for me.
And so
I don't mind once in a while, very, very rarely, but
that's funny.
I mean, it's hard enough that I sit down here and work on stuff here in the office.
But you're
and stuff.
Connected to your computer.
But I'm connected to the computer. I'm connected to God only knows how many instant messengers I've got open at one time. But if I was to just come down here and sit and look at the TV or nothing,
I don't watch TV though.
I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. It would kill me.
Well, someone asked me, what do I do with all my travel? How do I balance everything? And I said, there is no balance. It's a juggling game.
Yes.
And my thing is, when I'm on, I'm on. But when I'm off, I'm off. I mean, there's no in between. I'm either on or I'm off. And so either I'm on and I'm having a good time and I'm busy and I'm moving. And the only way my husband has learned to make me stop moving is he brings me to the cabin. And I do.
Here's a book.
Yeah. And I just kind of, I revert back to Michelle, calm Michelle. But mostly you see me, articulate and talking and moving. And I was laughing with my husband just the other day. I am go. He is, why do you think I bring you to the cabin? Because it's like pulls a battery out.
Does he throw a blanket over your cage too? Like a parrot.
Well, kind of. I usually sit up in my bed and read, or I have a big round chair at the cabin, and I curl up on the chair with my big old blanket, and I sit there and read.
I would be there for 20 minutes, maybe an hour, and then I'd be like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah, I love it.
But I also have to admit, it's been a long time since I actually sat down and read a book.
You read mine.
I read one after that too.
Oh yeah, you read Craig's book.
Yeah, and that's because it was
Craig Desil's book.
Yeah. What the heck?
No.
Welcome to the Jungle.
Welcome to the Jungle.
Something like that. Yeah.
It was about his touring with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, and to me that was fascinating. Because
music?
One thing it's music, right? One thing, we talked about what was your first novel. Well, what was your first CD? What was your first tape? I know what that was.
My first album.
I don't remember my first album because I kind of inherited, if you will, those of my dad's.
Oh, my first album, don't laugh. Glenn Campbell.
I only laugh because I know the rest of the story.
I love Glen Campbell.
No, I don't know my first album. I do know some of the first albums I listened to.
I
Like,
know my first A-track.
really?
Yeah, it was Car Wash.
Really?
It was the soundtrack from Car Wash.
Interesting.
At the car wash.
I know the first one I used to listen that I can
whoa.
remember listening to over and over again was Engelbert Humperdinck's Greatest Hits. And it wasn't on my own doing. I was working in a restaurant as a busboy at the age of 14. And the chef in an Italian restaurant, he was Hungarian. And yeah, exactly. But this Hungarian chef in an Italian restaurant had an 8-track player on top of the oven or something, whatever it was, the refrigerator or something, and all it was Engelbert Humperdinck around.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And then, of course, I owned a 1974 Ford Econoline van that had an 8-track player in it. So.
Well, I'm looking at I can see it in my head, the reel-to-reel my dad had in the living room. But it was
my dad never had a reel-to-reel.
He had a reel-to-reel, but it was a Motown reel-to-reel. And we would listen to it on repeat because it's probably why I know so many of the songs I do know, because we would listen to it over and over again. Oh, and I can't remember what it was.
It was probably Michael Jackson.
It probably was the Jackson 5.
Well, yeah, Jackson 5 at that time.
But yeah, music. Wow, that's hard because
my first cassette tape, Robert Plant.
My first cassette tape.
And I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was had Tall Cool Water on it.
And I think my first one that I purchased for myself was Sade.
Well, not the first one I purchased. The first CD I ever owned, I won.
Oh.
And it was the Beach Boys.
Oh, mine
the
wasn't
one
a
with
CD.
Key Largo on
it. It was a cassette tape.
Oh, cassette. It was Robert Plant. I do know that.
But CD, I think the first CD I purchased for myself was Indigo Girls.
That's disturbing.
How long can you let it ride?
Yeah. It says who you were as a kid.
Mm-hmm. I liked anything with harmony.
I don't know which was the first one I purchased. I just remember winning the one.
Yeah, and I don't remember what my brother's in music. My oldest brother is a huge musician. So I was always listening to whatever he was playing at the time. And usually it was him on the guitar doing dun, 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 dun.
Deep Purple.
Yeah, that's what all I remember. Just over and over again. And then when he learned saxophone, he started playing Summertime all the time, which is why it's my favorite. Summertime and
living is easy.
He was always playing that on his sax, and so I love that song. But music was always around me constantly, so I know that my family.
Could you read and write it, or read and listen at the same time?
No, I still can't.
Still can't.
And that's my thing with my husband and I. We'll go to the cabin. He likes to listen to music while he's reading. So I have to go to the room because I can't listen to music. It messes up my reading.
Right.
I'll get into a rhythm and start singing the same line over and over in my head. It's like, wait, it's not the music. I'm reading the line in the book to the rhythm.
I couldn't read a serious novel kind of book if I had really wanted to get into it. I couldn't do that with music on, but I could do my homework with music on.
I can do homework with music.
That was
different.
a cakewalk.
Now my thing.
I never remembered the song was on, but
Well, I was always listening to Casey.
Because we can only concentrate on one thing at a time. Is what they tell us.
That's what I used to do my homework with.
So you did it Sunday afternoons?
No, it was always on repeat.
I
lived at Clark, so
yeah.
Our AFRTS radio was always playing repeats, and so we just listened to the repeats. But what did you read? What do you enjoy reading? What have you enjoyed reading? If you stopped reading, why?
And was it an influence?
Yeah. Well, how did it influence you? Think about those kind of things, because really what we read, what we ingest, what we put in ourselves, in our minds, affects how we react to other people, how we work with our clients, and how we work with partners and things like that. Books can shift your life. And if you are in business and you aren't a reader, you may want to pick up the skill of at least listening to a few business books, because
that was a savior when they came out with audiobooks.
Yeah. And see, my thing is I don't like listening to audiobooks because I read like an audiobook in my head when I'm reading. And so to have an audiobook, the voice doesn't match what I had in my head.
Oh, I love audiobooks just because I can drive and listen to them at the same time.
The only audiobook I've ever listened to and enjoyed and loved every moment was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And then the other one was Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul.
Where do you come up with this stuff?
That's another Douglas Adams.
Does somebody else out there know this one?
Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul. It is the best narrated book. I honestly think one of the guys from Monty Python, shoot, can't remember his name, tall guy. He was
I'm the wrong person to ask that one.
He was in A Fish Called Wanda. I can
Martin?
see him. No, he's tall and thin, and he's
So was Steve Martin.
Steve Martin was not part of Monty
No,
Python.
but he was tall and thin. That's the only comedian I can think of.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Anyways, I don't know how I'm friends with Brian.
When you said friends with Fish with Wanda, I thought it was. No. I actually put that's where I came up with it. I thought they were.
A Fish Called Wanda had Jamie Lee Curtis, two of the guys from. I'm going to have to look it up.
You know that problem you're having right there?
Yeah.
That's mine all the time. I don't remember actors and actresses unless it's something specific.
John Cleese.
Oh, I would have never come up with that.
John Cleese, I think, is the one who narrates Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, and it cracks me up. I love that. Love it. Oh, I'm going to have to go pull that out. I'll have to listen to it again.
Now that you proved that I'm inadequate.
No, but books, they can change your life. And if you're lost or wondering what to do, you go to a section where you think that might be in the library or in the bookstore, or ask them, hey, I'm looking for something with this topic. They'll bring you to an entire section and you can go through. And honestly, the way your brain works, you can go through and let your fingers do the walking. And like when you see a title or words or a picture that kind of clicks with you, pick it up and read the back.
So you're saying you should judge a book by its cover?
Yes.
Oh, I had to get that in there. That was awesome.
Well, the reason I say that is because your mind will see what it needs to, your subconscious will see what it needs. And so that's why I say just kind of pull the book, and when it catches your eye, that's why it's important to have a nice cover. Then when you read the back, if it still resonates, see if you can read it. Go get it.
Now I have a challenge with I used to, every time I went on a plane flight, I used to take a book with me.
Really?
I'd find a book, and I mean, I didn't go on that many flights, but I'd find a book that I could take a novel with me that I could finish in a certain amount of time. So like when I went to Korea, I had like 13 hours in the air. Okay. Problem was I wasn't fast enough reader, and I would get to like the last chapter and a half, or half a chapter even, and never go back to the book because we landed.
Oh.
And I never went back to the book to finish the storyline.
And I can't read on the plane. So
I used to be able to.
I either write my own stuff or I do Sudoku.
I can't do Sudoku. I don't understand the rules.
And now that it's on my phone, it makes it even easier. So they can turn the lights off on the plane and I can still see my Sudoku.
Well, now that they've got the video screens on the back of the chairs and everything, still watch a movie and stuff.
I don't want to watch a movie when I'm on the plane.
I do. It kills my time. Or I watch it on my iPad. But usually they've got, especially on those long flights nowadays, they got them updated movies. Well, it's not like we're still trying to watch Blazing Saddles.
Well, I'm thinking.
Of course, then again, I might watch that one.
I think I've written many a book on an airplane. I've written them on the plane, or at least a major outline.
Oh, I could write an outline, but the rest of the book, no, not going to happen.
Yeah,
hasn't yet anyway.
I tend to expound really quickly when I'm on a plane because I've got my earbuds in and I'm just in my own world.
So anyway, the whole point of this conversation, since we're down to our last 30 seconds here, the whole point of this conversation was, one, it was fun. It was something different. We took it off on different directions, but really and truly, what are your influences? What have you read? What started your reading? What has made you who you are in some way, shape, or form?
It's important to know because it actually shapes where your future is going.
Uh-oh, I need new books.
You do need new books. He hasn't read any of mine except for one.
I read one.
But anyways, I won't go there.
No. You haven't read mine either.
You haven't written it yet.
I did, and just haven't let it out.
I read your chapter. I read part of your
That was
book.
bad enough,
Yeah.
right?
He just never finished it. He needs to finish it. So here's the thing. If you're a reader, keep reading. Good job.
Yes.
And kind of branch out a bit.
Don't be like Brian.
Don't be like Brian. And branch out to different kind of genres and see what clicks with you, because what you liked before may not be what you like now. There are other things out there that can broaden your horizons. And if you're an aspiring writer, you definitely want to read other types of books, because then you can find out what clicks and what doesn't for your own writing. And if you do not like to read, check out some audiobooks, because they have some amazing narrators. And Matthew McConaughey, my goodness, his voice is like spot on for almost every book. And
Interesting.
yeah, he's got a great storytelling voice. And that's the whole thing. Go out there, be a voracious listener or reader. My name is Dr.
So wait a
Michelle
minute.
Ross.
Paperback or hardback?
Hardback.
They're so hard to put in your luggage, though.
I carry, yeah. And they're heavy. Oh my gosh, they're heavy. But I prefer paper. It can be paperback.
You know, when I think paperback, you know what the first thing I think of?
Paperback writer?
No.
Harlequin romance.
Harlequin romance.
I knew it.
Oh, what was his name that was on the front cover?
Fabio.
Fabio, yes. I don't know why. When I think paperback, that's what I think.
And see, my thing is,
however, I have read many a paperback.
And I read paperback books, but when I like the book, I buy it in hardback and keep it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Mhm.
All right.
Now, can I say my name?
Say my name. Say my name.
My name is Dr. Michelle Ross.
And I'm Brian Swanson.
We are Denim and Pearls
This is Casual
with pearls of wisdom
from the porch.
Go out there and read. Peace.